yet?
No, Dad, not even close.
I love the show. I never read the comics, so the show is my main exposure to the IP, and it does a great job balancing a lot of characters, emotional moments, and fantastic fight scenes, which, in hindsight, the latter of which, makes an Invincible fighting game a no-brainer. Yet, that genre was never quite the first one I had in mind when thinking about a potential video game adaptation of Invincible, but lo and behold, Invincible Versus is a fighting game featuring the characters from the show and comic, developed by Quarter Up and published by Skybound Games. And although it's not perfect, this is definitely a game fans of Invincible should not skip. So let's talk about it. Hi guys, DPX here, reviewing today Invincible Versus. Now before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell, leave a comment, or I will take over your planet. Which is definitely different from Earth.
Hope that shell's got thicker.
To start off with the good, the gameplay is sick. Before even playing it, I thought it seemed similar to Mortal Kombat with its violence, Marvel vs. Capcom with its 3v3 tag fighter stuff, and Killer Instinct with its movement, and also because it's done by the same talent, or a similar talent at least. And after playing it, it definitely has a bit of all three sprinkled in, but Invincible Versus manages to still stand on its own. It is fast, but not in a way where you can't keep up or it's hard to control. I think Invincible Versus could be a good fighting game to jump into if you're not one who wants to grind combos and shit, but also one that works for that purpose too, if that made sense. It's a lot of fun, and what helps with that is the roster. Of course, the roster if we're talking about a fighting game, but this roster is pretty solid all things considered. It is kind of small, especially for a 3v3 tag fighter, but I also feel like this is pretty solid by most modern fighting game standards. And it's mainly, if not almost entirely, made up of characters who appeared in the show. I only mentioned that because I noticed Elemental was in this game, and I assumed she was in the comics because, again, my only real exposure to Invincible is the show, and then the comics through, like, comparisons to the show. But I was wrong. Elemental is actually an all-new character made for Invincible Versus, and she's a lot of fun. In fact, every character in this game is a lot of fun, except Cecil. He's mainly sort of just like a boring zoner, but even he has his moments when you play as him. As for my team, it did take me a while to really settle on one, but I think the team I settled on, and in this order, is Powerplex, Battle Beast, and Conquest. What's your team in this game? But what else is cool is Invincible Versus sort of takes a page out of NetherRealm's book, as kind of like in those games where before the match starts you get character interactions unique to each other. You get that here too, and it's great. I think it's a lot better in NRS games, but you know what they say, comparison is the thief of joy. So I'm not going to compare anymore. You know, I say that, but then later on in the script I do compare quite a few more times, but just shut up. There are hours of dialogue between characters, and it's a lot of fun. I just eat stuff like that up. The voice acting is really solid too. I remember hearing a lot of the characters speak and was surprised by how good they sound. So much so, I researched if this game has the same voice cast from the show, returning to do the voices in the game, and sure, a lot of voice talent from the show did return, but I was shocked to learn that not everybody did, especially Invincible, like Mark himself. Alex Lee does an amazing job voicing the character in the game, so much so I didn't even realize it wasn't Steven Yeun. But now to move on to some single player content. There is more I'll have to say about it later on, but we get a story mode and an arcade mode. How the arcade mode works is you select 3 characters, of course, but the first character you select is the one who matters most for the arcade mode and like the ending you unlock. And you get through a bunch of fights. It's what you would expect from a fighting game arcade mode. And at the end, you unlock a little ending for your character, similar to an NRS game. I don't want to keep comparing, but again, I like this. It gave me an incentive to beat arcade mode as every character, and also try out different team loadouts while I was at it. But then there is the story. It's short, which is something I'll get to later, but in that short runtime, they do pack quite a lot. It's not canon to the show or the comics, so the game is allowed to do its own thing and tell its own story, and I think the story they tell, for what it is pretty solid. Invincible Versus is also very violent, which is very on brand for the IP. But this game certainly does not disappoint in that regard. There's also online play. Of course, what fighting game doesn't have online play these days? And I will say, from the bit of it that I played, the netcode is solid. I didn't get any disconnects, no shitty connections, nothing like that. In addition to that, there's also a gallery section where you can look at some artwork, cutscenes, or listen to music with the music player. Which brings me to the next point, the music in this game is really solid. Also the visuals, both the actual graphics and also the visual style. This looks like they took the aesthetic of Invincible, be it the show or the comics, and adapted it into a video game, keeping the vibe but making it look more crisp. I think this works a lot. And overall, yeah, I just think Invincible Versus is a solid game for Invincible fans. To move on to the mixed aspects, first is not necessarily an issue, but more something to be aware of, and that's, this game might not be for everyone. I mentioned that it is rather welcoming, but there are aspects of the gameplay that may not be as welcoming. But also, fighting games are kinda niche in the grand scheme of things gaming-wise, and Invincible, despite being, really popular, isn't something that everybody has delved into. I am very interested to know how someone who hasn't read the comics or seen the show thinks about Invincible Versus. It's not like you need to know the lore or anything like that if you want to play this game, but it was something I just felt like mentioning. I got another thing I'm mixed on, and really it's an issue but with an asterisk, so let me explain. The more you play the game, there are alternate colors of characters you unlock. This is really cool and something I forgot to mention in the good. But what about alternate skins? Like, not just colors, but actual skins. Well, they exist behind a paywall for $10 each. Yup. I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, that's overpriced. $10 for Invincible with a mohawk is just plain stupid. It's in the mixed, however, and not the bad, because I don't see this as something that directly impacts the main game. Although a $10 skin is shitty, and there's multiple of them too, I don't really see it as an issue with the game itself, just an issue with the business surrounding the game. I'm not defending it, I'm just explaining why it's in the mixed and not the bad. But this is really dumb. Also, apparently for people who bought the deluxe edition, their extra content hasn't even unlocked yet. This is also in the mix because this doesn't affect me in any way because I got the standard edition. But if that's true, Skybound, guys, what are you doing?
Don't start with me. You know exactly what I'm capable of.
Oh, you've shared too much with me. I know your weaknesses.
Moving on to the bad, first is a smaller issue that I have, and that's the facial expressions. I know I said I like the pre-match character interactions, but the characters' expressions barely match their tone or their dialogue. Like, I noticed many times Invincible himself sounding really mad and really emotional, but his facial expressions make him look happy. It doesn't ruin the game for me, but something that took me out a couple times. As for other issues, I alluded to this earlier, and that's the story mode. I know I said the story was solid, and it is, but there's a difference between the story and the story mode. Because although the story itself is good, as a mode, it's kind of bad, in that it's incredibly short, like an hour long. And that might even be generous. I've seen a full playthrough of the story mode pop up in my YouTube feed, clock in at like 30 minutes. That is ridiculous. And again, they pack quite a lot into that short story they tell, but the length is also like to its detriment, because as solid as the story is, it just ends. Like, it was so abrupt. I thought something was wrong, but no, I had just beaten the story mode. They'll probably release a story expansion DLC because it ends on a cliffhanger, but what the fuck? And more on the story mode being short, Invincible Versus is just light on single player content in general. All it really has in this regard is story mode and arcade mode, and maybe if you want to fight some CPUs in normal Versus matches. And I like the story in the short runtime it had, and I enjoyed arcade mode and unlocking every character's ending, but once you do all that, that's it. Aside from maybe trying on higher difficulties because the amount of matches changes when you do that, I don't have much of an incentive to replay arcade mode. And yes, if you are a competitive fighting game player looking to go pro in Invincible Versus, I don't think any of what I just said would apply to you. You know, you're just there to grind. And more power to you. But there's a lot of people who like single player content in fighting games, and I'd say Invincible Versus is very much lacking in that regard.
Pathetic human. You dare confront the battle beast?
Yeah, and I've got some nice toys for the kitty to chase.
Overall, I really enjoyed my time with Invincible Versus. As someone who got into the franchise with the first season of the show and was hooked ever since, this is a game that I thoroughly enjoyed. It is not without its faults though. Specifically that it is very lacking in offline single player content, especially that story mode being as short as it is and ending as abruptly as it does. Plus, some other questionable and greedy business stuff with the $10 skins don't really affect my experience, but paint a not so great picture. That's not enough to ruin Invincible Versus though, as I feel fans of the show or fans of fighting games will get a kick out of it. So in the end, I give Invincible Versus an 8 out of 10. And I have to clarify this every time. Somehow the narrative became an 8 out of 10 means it's bad. No, an 8 out of 10 means it's really good, but not perfect. So that's my review for Invincible Versus. Sorry that this is coming out like, what, 5 days after the game came out. You know, there is an upload I wanted in that time, like within that span, and I wanted to spread out my uploads a bit more. But yeah, what do you guys think of Invincible Versus? Do you guys like the game, not like the game? Have you guys played it, not played it? If you guys haven't played it, do you guys want to play it, not want to play it? Anything about the game, let me know down below. Anyways, be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, or I will take over your planet. Bye!